I don't recall any successful person on the planet in any industry, politicians, athletes, singers, anyone, CEO, that didn't have someone else supporting them, mentoring them, coaching them, influencing them. There's not anyone that's done it completely alone by themselves, isolated. We all build from other people's knowledge, and we always build from other people's support as well.
Fabio, great to see you. Thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, Artie, how are you?
I'm doing good. So, you are a neuroscience and life coach. You're a father, a husband. You're a former professional athlete, and you're the founder of Allos Mind app. Um, for any listeners who might not be familiar with you, anything else you want them to know before we go on?
No, I mean, in that little short intro, there is a lot going on. And that's probably who I am right now in this present moment. It's not who I was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So I don't expect to be that person in the next 5 to 10, 20 years. But at the moment, yeah, that's a pretty, like a couple of lines summarizing 40, almost 41 years of living on this beautiful planet.
Awesome. What sport were you a professional athlete in? Where'd you play?
Water polo. Water
Water
polo.
polo.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
played for like 14 years in Italy. Only one season in New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah, loved it. I started when I was 8, and it
Oh, wow.
was my obsession until I was 24, 25. When I say obsession, it's like I was an addict. I couldn't think about anything else. I couldn't, just even figure out what to do with my life until I was 24, 25, because I was completely immersed into water polo. Yeah, I think it shaped a big chunk of my personality.
Yeah.
I had some troubles. If you want, we can discuss a bit more in depth. When I started being like a older teenager, 17, 18, because of the water polo, how competitive I was, the people surrounding me, my coaches, my mates. It was tough, but beautiful at the same time. So I don't regret anything at all. Of course, if I could talk to myself back at the time, I would give so many just
Yeah.
tips on how to approach life differently. But it was me at the time. You cannot say on inside I would have done this, this, and that, and regret it, because at that time I only had that experience, that data, that support, especially almost no support, and the support I had was probably not the right support I needed. And when you're at that fragile age, it's really tough to make the right decision, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it guided the first like 15, 20 years of my adult life until probably 10 years ago, that I really finally changed for the good, at least for now.
Mm.
And yeah, but it's still in me, still in me. Nothing is suppressed, nothing is gone forever. I
Yeah.
understand a lot more of what was going on in my mind back in the time.
Yeah. So, like, you had issues because they just train you to be so competitive that you're just was it like leeching into everything else? Were you just competitive in every arena of life?
No, honestly, I was the 99% of my competitiveness was water polo. The rest, I was actually a really just chill out guy. Uh,
Yeah.
at school, in life, with friends, a relationship, family. I was almost the opposite, not the opposite, but very chilled, just probably because, and then I realized right now, the last few years, water polo was taking everything out of me. Then when I was behaving like Fabio in real life, I didn't have any anger left. I didn't have any issue with anyone I left, because
Yeah.
everything was going into that single bucket. And when you empty your anger bucket so much daily, in one area only, everything else it's different. You have other things to give, right?
Yeah.
Which was a good thing for my life, my friends, my parents. Back when I was a teenager, they were the people that I had around the most. It was definitely not a good thing in water polo. Yeah, so the environment was very competitive. It was still very old style in the terms of bullying. So I grew up, I started when I was 8, 9, 10. I became very competitive already like at 10, 11. And I started playing with the much older players, 15, 20, even 30 years old when I was 12. And they grew up, imagine I was 12, they were 30, and I'm 41 now. So they grew up in the 60s and 70s
Mm.
when bullying was a norm. They were bullying it just for fun, and the parents were saying nothing. It was actually part of the tradition. And when I say bullying, is even beating you for nothing,
Really?
making you because you are the youngest, making you do stupid things in front of everyone else, sort of like humiliating you. I've seen a lot of my mates quitting water polo very early because of that. They couldn't handle it. And I could handle it. I actually thrive in it. So I earn respect. And because I earn respect, they were bullying even more until a point that they accepted me. And for me, when I was 12, 13, 14, it was just a badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
I could hang out with people that were like 20, 25, 30 years old. They were like seen as badass, and they were protecting me. I became part of the pack. And from that moment, it was very hard to get out of it. I'm not saying about that there was like a gang, but you get the point. It was almost like a gang.
Yeah, it sounds
We
like
were
it.
not bullying anyone else outside. It's just internal between the team. But then it became a big fight between teams, the team A and team B, or team, my own team against the neighborhood team, and some huge rivalry. Luckily, it was sport related, so it was not fighting. But when we were playing, water polo is such a physical game that it was more almost like an arena.
Mm.
There was someone breaking something every single game. There was a lot of swearing, yelling, fighting, getting kicked out. Because I was the smallest, the youngest, weakest physically, I had to be a lot more aggressive than others, right? So I ended up fighting with people that were like twice my size and twice my age. And kicked out immediately, of course. But even my coach at the end of the game was complimenting me. And what do you think, a teenager, young teenager does when you fuel the anger before the game, during the game, after the game? You've done great. Do it again. Do more.
Yeah.
um, Inside, it looks like they use me as a puppet almost. I was very useful because I could go against one of the best player of the other team, maybe make myself and the other player kicked out, and it was a huge loss for them and not a great loss for us, right? Sort of
Yeah.
like sacrifice yourself for the good of the team. But it started eroding something inside me. I didn't have any other guidance. I only had that kind of environment, and because probably I was in naturally keen to thrive into that environment, I loved it. I loved it for a good like 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's the environment I grew up with. It's I'm just telling you the bad stuff. Then it was, of course, a lot of cool stuff as well. I have great memories. But the great memories didn't shape my behavior and my
Mm.
personality for the following 20 years. The bad ones did.
With the bullying, why is bullying such a big thing? Is it so like fraternities bully, and it's kind of a the people who are bullied feel more kind of a connection with the people that bullied them, like that if they're in a fraternity because they had to get bullied to get there. There's more of a commitment to the organization that they got bullied to join. Is that kind of it, or is there another reason?
No, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, if the people bullying others are looked up as the cool people, the cool guys, the badass, the one that gets the girls, the one that gets successful, the one that wins the games. That's the imprint in your mind. That's who you want to be, right?
Yeah.
That's why I tried into it, because I didn't like the bullying, but I wanted to be as successful as the guys that were bullying me. And they did the same when they were younger.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't like being beat up, baking cake every second day, carrying all the bags. In water polo, there are like 13 players. Sometimes I had to carry 13 bags. So do like multiple trips from the bus to the changing room, because no one else wanted to carry their own bag. So I looked like the mule. And it's sort of like humiliating, right? But
Yeah.
in a positive way as well, because you are so young and so different that you think like, oh, I have the honor almost to carry their bags, right? Which is ridiculous. Thinking now I'm much older than the people that were bullying me. I would never, and even in my craziest moment, think about beating someone that is 12 years old, that is loving the game and really want to succeed, and is actually looking at me like I'm his idol. I would never be able to do that. So the only people that you can blame are the people that are like 20 to 30 years old that were bullying me. But there is not much you can say to someone that is much younger and that is trying their best, and no one is telling them there is another way of doing it.
Yeah.
No one is supporting them. No one is standing up for them. So I totally understand when kids or teenagers at that age do crazy shit. It's similar. Sometimes I do this analogy, similar to raising a dog, right? There is not a single dog in the world that is by nature bad. But if the owners are assholes, even a Chihuahua, even a Yorkshire can become like a pain in the ass, right? It's how you raise them. It's how you support them in the kind of path you tell them, oh, there are different ways of doing stuff. There are different ways of reacting. Stand up for yourself. I can back you up. If you don't have that support, when you are that fragile at that age, it's almost impossible. You only see one direction, and then everything else is completely dark.
Yeah. When you got older and you're in the position to be the bully, um, you didn't like it when you were doing it. So, like, what do you think prevents you from just stopping the cycle at that point? Like, is it just it's just built into the atmosphere so much?
No, I don't think. I honestly don't believe in fate or destiny, right?
Yeah.
I believe in you accumulate all the experiences in your life, but your brain filters all the information in billion different ways, and my filter, my brain is different than yours, and it's different day by day, second by second, because we keep receiving millions of information per second, and we keep filtering it, and by filtering it, we reshape our brain constantly. So we keep going in a different direction. So the way my brain filtered it, after a point, my bucket, my patience, let's say, I couldn't handle it anymore. That bucket was completely full. Probably it overflew for a few years
Yeah.
until another bucket decided it was by time. That was the years when I started, becoming like a young adult, 17, 18, and up to the early 20s. You start, seeing outside your pond. Oh, there's another pond. Who is playing in that pond? And then you start talking to more people. You expand your network, and you start looking up to other people that are different. Like, oh, and something clicks. So finally, at that age, I had another coach. I had different coach throughout the year because I was playing 3 different leagues. The one my age, the one 2 years above, and the senior. So each league had different coaches. At 17, 18, I had a different coach in my league, my age, which was completely different from anyone else I had before. It was the youngest. I think at that time it was 28, so only 10 years older than us. And we look up at him as an older brother instead of like a strict commander coach, like I had until that time. And so he basically opened new doors to me, like, oh, there is a different way of playing this sport, the different way of dealing with people. There is different way of waking up in the morning and train instead of going full on like a bull against the wall until the wall cracks or my head cracks. It's like, oh, I could actually open the door and go through the wall that way.
Yeah.
I can be gentle with people and not fighting the whole time. I can be a different player and still be successful. That was the main thing. Or because he was not a great player when he was younger, I can actually be successful without being a great player as well. And to me at that age, it was like, wow, there's a new world out there.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that side. I was still competitive. I was still playing and training as hard as possible, but my mindset started shifting. So for me, my big pivotal moment was meeting someone that could see that I could see something different from him, and he was helping me a lot. He was coaching me in a different way. It was almost like mentoring me instead of just physically coaching. And yeah, that was a pivotal moment. It took a good 2 or 3 years for me to realize, and then another 2 or 3 years to actually change. So it was
Yeah.
not like, oh, I like you, I'm a different person now. Definitely not.
Yeah.
It took me like talking to him hundreds of times, and he talking to me and telling me the different ways I've done wrong, I could have done differently, until something really clicked.
Yeah.
And I didn't regret everything I've done at that point, but I could go both ways. I could be aggressive but gentle. I could be competitive but smart. I could talk back to people because now I built that baggage and that experience, that people respected me. So I had a different position as well.
Yeah. I mean, you see these changes that you need to make, and obviously you have a coach or mentor who's helping you with some of it, but what is your personal, what do you have to do? Like, what's the neuroscience behind that? What do you have to do to actually make that change work?
Yeah, so that is the $1 million question. So when I coach people, I only coach people that are committed.
Mm.
If you first are not committed to any kind of change, if you don't see the problem, there is nothing any mentor, any coach can do for you. And what you internally have to do to actually click, it's completely different person to person. Um, there is like what I work on. My foundations is like the 7 logical level of change. So we go through different questions to understand where the problem is. So I can explain it quickly. So imagine like the classic pyramid, right? Like a food pyramid where you have different levels. In this case, the bottom one is not the foundations like in a food pyramid where it's the things that are the most important and then it gets like less important. It's the opposite. So level 1 is the least important, level 7 is the most important. So let's say if you have problems at level 3, and then I'll explain you what levels are. You cannot change level 1, the bottom one, and think the problem is going to go away. Make sense? You always need to change either that level or the all levels above, and then we'll cascade down. So the first one is your environment. So who you're surrounded with, where you live, what you do, like external circumstances. And that's in these 7 level changes is the least important. Still important, still absolutely important, still something to consider. And it's probably one of the first things we can discuss easily and that you can change easily, right? In my life, I changed country, I changed job, I changed city I lived with, I changed the people I network with. So anyone can do that. There is no one stopping you from doing that. And there is no much internal work involved. If you're telling me after we discussed that you hate your workplace, gosh, that's the first thing you should change. And there is no meditation, there is no push-up challenge you need to do. It's just changing work, right? Change that environment and see if that help, right? If you still carry the same problems, so probably the environment is not the same. Because I met a lot of people that are like, oh, I hate my work. The networking, the job I do, it's toxic. Cool. After a few months, we managed to get this person a different job, different city sometimes, completely different. and they still say the same thing. I hate my work. I hate my network. Okay, that's probably the work is not the problem because you already changed everything. You can't keep blaming on the environment. So the second level, just above the environment, is your behavior. How do you actually behave? Because let's say this example, you change your job and you still have the same problem. It's like, okay, how do you behave at work? What kind of impression you give to others? Oh, I'm always in front of my computer. No one needs to bother me. If they come, I yell at them because I'm doing my own stuff. Then of course you don't find mates at work. Then of course your manager just send you an email instead of coming to talk to you. And then you basically are fueling this toxic environment, right? You basically are recreating the toxic environment wherever you go because the problem is not the environment, it's the behavior. Fix the behavior, and because one level down is environment, and you will fix the environment, right? One level above is your capabilities. So if you struggle and your behavior is not a problem, it's like, what are you capable of? What are your possibilities? Have you checked that only one direction, or did you open more doors and see if other direction worked for you? So that's a bit harder. So the higher you go, the harder it is to work on, right? The more probably you need support to actually see outside your bubble. Then we're getting into the nitty gritty. We have beliefs. I'll tell you immediately. Beliefs, values, identity, and vision. Vision is at the top, right? That's the top of the pyramid. So if you change your beliefs, you change everything else. You change your values, you fix your beliefs as well. If you change your identity, then your values, your beliefs are gonna get much better. If you change your mission and your vision, it's much bigger than yourself. If you think about that, what are you part of? Then you fix everything else, right? So if your problem, let's say, is you don't believe in anything, you don't believe you're part of the bigger picture, you're completely lost. It's like there is nothing you can do in changing your environment, your behavior, even your beliefs, because your problem is up there. So you need to start thinking about the bigger picture. It's sort of like zooming out every time, right? So if your problem is here, you can fix this one. But if your problem is out here, there is nothing you can do in the middle that will fix the bigger picture. So that's what we do. We talk a lot until we discover where the problem is, and it's not fixed, right? So if I talk to you today, we might discuss after a couple of sessions that your problem is in your beliefs, your culture, where you grew up, your limiting beliefs that's stopping you. But in a year time could be completely different. So that's the beauty of it. We are human beings. We're not fixed machines yet. So it's always a work in progress, and sometimes it's quite easy to understand. Other times it's all the areas are very gray, so it takes a bit longer. Especially if you never work on yourself in your whole life, you've never done any deep search on yourself. That's of course it's a lot harder. It takes a lot more time, more questions, more exercise.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I have is how do you deal with sometimes people have a problem with how somebody else is acting, what somebody else is doing. But earlier you said commitment, like you have to be committed to the problem. And we're often not committed to fixing the problems that other people see us having. So how do you usually navigate that?
Yeah, so the first thing probably they teach you in any coaching, in LLP, life coaching, is you are 100% accountable to your own reaction and response. So you cannot fix other people. They are accountable for their own actions.
Yeah.
Of course, you are more than entitled to not like how other people talk to you, but you cannot come from the angles like they are wrong, I'm right.
Yeah.
They need to fix the problem before the relationship or whatever it's in between us. Before it get fixed, they need to work on it. There's nothing I can do. So that's not 100% accountability. So it's like, okay, I think they're wrong. I'm right. What can I still do to make this right? You need to be 100% accountable. So one thing could be if they are factually wrong, it's just communication. Like talk to them, show them, be clear, be yourself, The longer you postpone this first step, the harder it will get. And what I mean by that is it's a very simple sentence, but I mean, most of the problem, the very rooted problem are between family members, where these confrontations have been stagnant or ignored for like decades, right? You for sure. I know that you know someone that in the family they haven't spoken to the sister, the daughter, the cousin for decades because one Christmas Eve you didn't come to my party, but you went to John's party. You know, the small problems that happened that day created a small tension that's never been resolved. And 20 years, a long time, when I never invited you back at Christmas because I still hate you for that small thing. Um, so that's my problem. Yes, they did something I didn't like. Great. The morning of the 25th, I called you. Hey, Jack, why didn't you come to I really care about that. You know, I really care for you coming. And John might say, "Oh gosh, sorry. Just I thought you had a big party, and the other person was lonely. I went to the other party." Because most of the time, it's something so easy. You remove the tension straight away that morning after, and you're super happy after. But they never do. There's so many people postpone this confrontation and actually build up. 20 years later, 10 years later, they don't even know what was the original. And if you ask both person, they will tell you two different stories. You know?
Yeah.
Because of our memory works, right? Every time we pull up something from our memory drawer, we reconstruct whatever happened. Every single time. It's not a fixed thing. There are some things in the drawer, we take it, we reconstruct, and we make a new story every single time. So imagine 20 years later, if something so small, it became like huge, gigantic, and mine became like a big elephant, your became like a big boat, you know,
Yeah.
two completely different stories. If you stop them immediately, you discuss, you're accountable for your own action, you try to fix it, you're honest, you're clear, you're respectful, of course, 99.9% of the problems are fixed. That's not to say that you cannot fix it even 20 years later. But as I mentioned, now you build a lot of friction. You build a lot of things. So you cannot fix it in a single phone call, probably. You need to actually sit down and, be a lot more honest. Maybe it takes a lot more effort, more energy. Anything can be fixable, especially these things. And I think it will really make the world a better place if we start being like 100% accountable without playing the victim, without blaming other people. You know, the victimism and blaming, it's probably two of the biggest problem I've seen in the last 10 years at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on like addressing something. Yeah, you don't want to start fights with people unnecessarily, but if somebody's like crossing a boundary that you haven't vocalized, for some reason this has always been something I've been pretty decent at doing. Like if somebody crosses a line with me, I usually, I'm socially aware usually, but like I'll tell the person afterward, like, hey man, I didn't appreciate when you did that. Like I have a problem with that. Because it's like if you don't, they're just going to keep doing it again, and you're going to build up more and more resentment because you haven't told them what's bugging you. They don't know that it's bugging you, or they don't care.
Exactly.
And then you can also get in a bigger fight later down the road because first of all you have more resentment, but then they're also like, I've been doing this for 10 years, why didn't you say, like,
Exactly, right?
why do you have a problem now? Like I, this is normal, so you've normalized it by allowing it to persist for so long,
Yeah.
right?
People get pissed off most of the time, even because you waited for so long, right?
Yeah.
And then even if it's you coming out with that, oh, I hated when you did it 10 years ago, that you're doing a good thing now, finally, but you become the bad guy because you waited for so long, not the other
Yeah.
person, right? So
Yeah.
it's that person projecting into you and not being accountable for their own action as well.
Yeah, it's funny because like it's almost you become the bad guy for allowing it to have happened before. So it's like you were
Yeah,
fine with this for 5 years. What's your problem now? And it's like because you didn't speak your mind before, people almost they they assumed you were okay with it. So like in their mind, in their memory, even though you're telling them now that it wasn't right those 5 years, they're the catalog of their memory just says no problem here. It was perfectly okay. So now it just seems weird to for them to be
Exactly.
called out on it sometimes, right?
How many movies, they in the plot, they only had this problem. Like they started
Yeah,
with the small things, it's more like, I don't think it's the right time to tell you this. And the
yeah,
whole movie is about this, just waiting, waiting, waiting until something huge happened, and that's the whole movie. Nothing else. It's all about this. It's just not being honest because I think I'm gonna hurt your feelings. What do you think is gonna happen if I think now I'm gonna hurt your feelings? What do you think is gonna happen in a year, 10 years,
yeah,
50 years time? That most of the time happens in the worst possible timing, right?
yeah,
When we're getting married, or when your brother is getting married, or when a changing job, when your dad dies, and then these small things come out of nothing. What do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be a lot worse. So every time when I talk to people, it's like, try to project it. Oh, okay, you had this friction with that person. Try to project it. If you don't do anything in a year or 5 year time, depending on the relationship, do you think this problem is going to resolve itself? If the answer is yes, like, okay, cool. So probably it's not a big problem. It's definitely just a one-off thing. But if the answer is like, no, it's either gonna stay there, or just gonna create friction every single day, or every time we see, or every time we communicate, and then it could get worse. If the answer is that, just what's stopping you in fixing the problem now?
yeah,
And so most of the time, I've been labeled as a direct, as strict. Even if I try to talk to people with a smile, we're still like, oh, why you confronted me with something this small? Like, because people are used to get away with these small things. Um, but in my experience, my own personal experience and professional experience, these small things accumulate. They're a baggage until they become a bigger things. I don't want to get to the point that I need to deal with something I can't deal because it's too heavy, it's too big, it's too complicated. It takes too much time, and then it's gonna ruin my relationship, my day, my week, your life, and whatever, right?
yeah,
So I much more prefer like frequent, small check-in and confrontations to remove the friction than a much bigger problem tomorrow. And then I tell them the analogy of cleaning your house. There is some people that wait until the house is like a shithole before cleaning it. uh, I prefer not to live in that, right? I don't sweep under the rug. I don't just leave, the windows full of dirt sheet until I need to call someone and to do it professional. I can, get a rug, clean a single dirt sheet, and I'm done. And then the windows are clean. If I have to do it like 5 minutes a day, it's much better than doing it for like 5 hours in a month's time. And in the meanwhile, I live in a house that it's dirty, right? And that's the same thing when your mind and your emotions. Up until you clear the problem, you live in a state that it's not happy, it's not healthy, it's not light, it's not, and that's what you project to others as well. So I prefer to have, no regrets and be happy and be labeled as direct than to have baggage that I hold on constantly.
yeah. Something I've adopted over the years is kind of not putting things off as much. Like, so let's say you have some dishes that are sitting in the sink. You need to wash the dishes. And then you're like, I have time right now, but I don't want to do it. I just want to watch a movie. Right. And I'm going to do it tomorrow. Well, you're kind of telling yourself, I'm going to start my day off dealing with a mess tomorrow instead of taking 5 minutes out of my day right now to have it and be able to start tomorrow with kind of like more of a clean slate. So it's the same
Yep.
thing, right? It's like, do you want to deal with your confrontation now and tell the person how you feel or resolve the situation, whatever it is? Or do you want to let that mess build up until tomorrow? And then
On point. On
right,
point, on point. So what I say to people is like, in the small example as washing the dishes, did you want to make yourself, your tomorrow self, proud or not? Because
yeah,
if your tomorrow self wakes up and your yesterday self cleaned the dishes and the house is clean, you're gonna be like happy. All right, I was great yesterday. I helped myself. But if you leave the dishes there, it's sort of like leaving the problem to your tomorrow self. So you wake up already pissed, like, I'm lazy. Everything comes into your mind. I procrastinate. I'm lazy. I'm not good enough. You're fueling that. You're fueling that
Yeah,
kind of behavior and emotions.
yeah,
Why the army and the military, they tell you to make up your bed. It's one of the most important things they do. It's exactly for that reason. You're always proving yourself that you're there, you're diligent, you do the things that are most annoying first, you can deal with shit, and you're making yourself proud in the future as well. So that's all
yeah,
part of the same mindset.
yeah,
It starts with small things. It's definitely most of the work you have to do is small things. It's nothing catastrophic.
yeah, I agree. The identity thing is interesting. I read Atomic Habits last year, and it was something that really
Very cool.
resonated with me about making something more of your identity. Like if because I was at the time I wasn't going to the gym very often, and I was getting a little pudge on my belly. I'm like, I need to get back to the gym, and I was having trouble with that motivation. It's always hard the first few weeks, right? So after reading that, I started thinking about it more and like identifying more. Like, I am a healthy person. I'm somebody who goes to the gym 3 times a week, like, and since then it's made going to the gym a lot easier because I just kind of try to embody that. Like, that's who I am. I'm somebody who goes to the gym. And now it's
That's
like
important.
Holly's got we're sharing a car right now. Her car broke down, and then Wednesday, she's like, "I have to work these hours and these hours." And now all I can think about is, well, however I need to make it happen, I'm getting to the gym that day. If I have to walk to the gym, whatever, that's my priority is getting to the gym, making sure that I stay committed to that 3 days a week that I've committed to now for the last few months. So I
Nice.
really like the identity stuff and
So you
making
see
change
what
happen.
you see what you're doing. You're working on identity. That was like the second after vision,
Yeah,
and because that became your priority, your capabilities, as what you do, and your action, your behaviors are following, right?
yeah,
They were below, right?
yeah,
Yeah, in Atomic Habit, they said, like, who are you? It's like, and most of the people will answer you when you ask them, who are you? They will answer you, I'm an accountant. Like, no, 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 that's what you do.
yeah,
That's down here. That's your capabilities. Like, what do you actually do? Who are you up there? And most of the people will be like, I have no idea. It's like, well,
yeah,
what are your values and beliefs? So you come one or two steps under. Because most of the time, if you do like a too big of a step, a gap, right? It's just too much. People can't figure like 3 steps ahead. They're like, okay, that's your capabilities. Like, what are your beliefs? And you start thinking, like, where do you grow up? What was your mom telling you? What was your idol when you was like 12, 14, which shapes a lot of your beliefs. And then you ask general questions like, okay, so what are your values? Oh, our values like respect and honor. Like, okay, so who are you? So, and you make them understand if they don't have the answer. And that identity, when it's ingrained into your mind, it will dictate everything down. You won't be able to maybe stay in the same environment because it's way lower and the gap is big. You will see your environment almost like toxic now because you have a strong beliefs on and strong values and strong identity that don't resonate anymore with that environment.
yeah,
So you have to change that one, right?
yeah. Uh, a lot of this requires focus and mental filters. Like, how do you approach focus and mental filters?
So on terms of focus, I'm very much believe, probably because of the sport background, that discipline is a lot more important than your momentum or your motivation, right? You probably have seen those graphics where you say your motivation and momentum is like a bouncing ball that just big bounce first and then slowly, and each bounce lose some energy until it just drops, right? That's your motivation. Discipline is a ball that bounce maybe less the first bounce, but keeps bouncing the same. That's discipline, right? Over and go and over and go over, never stops. Um, so that's how I work with focus. I always 99.9% suggest That's a suggestion. That's up to you to have someone else in the picture to help you out. I don't recall any successful person on the planet in any industry, politicians, athletes, singers, anyone, CEO, that didn't have someone else supporting them, mentoring them, coaching them, influencing them. There's not anyone that's done it completely alone by themselves, isolated. We all build from other people's knowledge, and we always build from other people's support as well. So number one, when you want to build discipline, because you're playing the long-term game, you're not playing like, I want to win today and that's it, I don't care about tomorrow, is getting a mentor, getting a coach, talking to someone that you think it's a few steps ahead of you. That's great. And I always tell them, if I wanted to be successful in business, let's say, I would probably not choose to be mentored by Alex or Mosey. Even if it's incredibly ridiculous successful, it's so many steps ahead of me that unless he is a genius and he knows how to coach someone like me, or there's going to be a lot of friction, a lot of gaps in between that is going to be hard for both of us to fill. I want to be coached by someone that is a couple of steps, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of me, maybe a year ahead, 5 years ahead, ideally maybe in the same industry, or they are the same, even if the future is different from us, maybe they're the same background. Those are the people that really, they really get you, you get them, they really know how to deal with you, or you really know how to take a few of their snippets and make it your own, because it's a lot more relatable. So that's what you need to get focus, to really don't waste your time. At the end of the day, Elon Musk had the same 24 hours as we do, until he cloned himself and he become like an AI god. At the moment, we all have the same 24 hours. The only way to do it is surrounding yourself with people where you can delegate stuff that you are not good at or you don't want, so you can really focus on the things you're good at, you like, that motivate you. But motivation is just one small part of the discipline. What you want at the end of the day, and what I do as a coach, is I show you there are different ways of doing stuff. I just open your eyes and I try to remove some friction in your life or business, whatever we're discussing. Then all the choices are yours. If I remove that friction and the energy you need to do to invest and waste into things you don't like, and I show you that instead of $1, there are $10, your life is already like 100 times better. So that's what I do as a coach. That's, I think, what all the coaches should do. It's not telling you what to do, because no one in the world knows what you should be doing other than you. What you need is just a bit more clarity, less confusion, more possibilities, so you can make the best decision for yourself.
Yeah. What are mental filters? How are mental filters used?
Mental filters is, I think I mentioned at the beginning. Our brain, the way I see our brain, is the most complicated filter ever created in the world, right?
Yeah.
So the way we filter informations is by vision, audio, kinesthetic. It's the way how we talk, the internal dialogue as well. It's sometimes called auditory digital. So we have all these filtering systems that filter like millions of information that we receive per second. Then we have, our subconscious, our conscious, because our brain by nature is sort of like lazy, always choose the path of least friction. It really thrives into efficiency, and it's a biological thing, right? We don't want to waste energy. Even medieval times, if they could find an apple a meter from them, they wouldn't struggle to go and look for a lion. They would just eat the apple until they actually don't have any more apples, and then they look for, the bunny in the woods until, they only take those huge risks if they have to. And our brain is the same. It only try to waste energy or use a lot of energy if only has to. But if you offer the brain a much easier solution, it will go for that for sure. So it's a two-edged, a double sword. So that's how we filter things. And that's how well, I think if you study a bit in depth and you start discovering why, that's how we shape our behavior and our vision, because we filter information every single second of our life since we're born, and most of the information become autonomous, so they go into the subconscious because of the efficiency, right? We don't think about blinking anymore or moving our hands when we talk. The way we use most of our muscle, it's all automatic, right? Imagine if I had to think about my tongue moving when I'm talking, and the throat and breathing and how to say it. You would go nuts. Your brain completely would just burn out every single second of your life. But luckily, 99% of the things are autonomous. So the subconscious delegates to the conscious only the few things that are new, a few things you can really focus on. And that's part of our behavior, right? That's the beauty of it. As I mentioned, it's a two-edged sword, because you can use it for the good, to learn and grow, or you can become very lazy. If you feed the easiest road to your brain and it's not the direction you want to keep, it's just going to carve the direction in a very strong way. Imagine like walking the same path inside the bush and cleaning that path every time you walk it. That road will become very, very clear. But if that's not the road you want to walk, it's going to be hard to walk the other road. And now, because you neglected it, now it's full of bush and branches, and your brain will not want to go that way unless you train it, or you have someone that's going to make you do that, right? In different ways. It's not going to force you and throw you there, because again, as I mentioned, it must be your choice. But the mentor will tell you, at the end of that walk, there is a much better life for you. There's the person that we discussed. Your identity is not at the end of this walk. It's very clear, but you can see your identity is down there. So start cleaning a bit that bush on the left that you don't like walking, and you'll see that the person is down there. So that's how you work with your filters. You can use it as a weapon, right? There are people that very much learn and grow more with visual, other with audio, and luckily we have a billion different ways nowadays to do that, right?
Yeah.
I like a mix of it, but I'm very much like an internal dialogue person. I need to talk to myself to really ingrain things and learn and grow. I coach myself sometimes. I'm not my only coach, but I'm one of my coaches.
Yeah.
And I like it. I grew becoming two different personalities. It's Fabio coach for Fabio as well. And sometimes I make do myself things that I don't want. But if it's just me, it will be very hard. If it's like it's Fabio the coach telling me that I need to get my ass up and go to the gym today, I just do it, because it's not me saying it; it's my coach telling me what to do.
Yeah. So,
Like a couple of days ago, I've done the same thing. I was very demotivated. It was a bad day. Just but because I don't rely on motivation, I rely on discipline. I went to the gym. I smashed the workout. I felt 100 times better, especially on the day you don't want. If you do the things you know that are good for you, the exponential growth and results and reward, it's so much better.
would mental filters making it easy, like would making something easy kind of be in line with the mental filters? Like instead of having the book that you want to read every day in a bookshelf where you have to go and grab it, you just have it sitting right there, so it's just ready to be read every day. Is that kind of what mental filters would
Yeah.
entail? Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the way of doing it. There's one thing that's called the 20-second rule. So if it's something you want to do, keep it no more, than 20 seconds away from you. If it's something you don't want to do, let's say stop smoking, keep it more than 20 seconds away from you.
Yeah.
It's very easy, simple to remember, and it works with the smallest thing or the biggest thing. Of course, if it's a huge addiction, it will take just more time. But as I mentioned, our brain all is lazy by nature. It's a beautiful thing that when I say that. But if you are sitting on a couch and to get the cigarette, you need to stand up, go to the other room, go downstairs in the basement, get the key from your mom that is next door, and it's more than 20 seconds, probably 2 or 3 minutes. Trust me, you will smoke like 100 times less.
Yeah.
If the cigarette is here, what do you think you're going to be doing? It's so easy to fall into the trap. So easy. But you can work the other way around, right? That's something you don't want to do. Keep it more than 20 seconds. But if you want to be a healthy person, because I'm telling you this thing because they're the most common things related to food. You don't want to drink soda. Keep the soda freaking far away. Ideally, not even in your home. Very easy. But keep the water next to you. Keep, your herbal tea always there. Brew herbal tea the whole day, even if you don't drink it.
Hmm.
What do you think you're gonna do when you're thirsty? The first few sips, at least, are gonna be your herbal tea because it's there. And even without thinking, like, gosh, I want to drink some Coke, and you drink herbal tea, but the Coke is downstairs. Gosh, like, go and get me the Coke. You drink half the herbal tea. By the time you get the Coke, you're not thirsty anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that way of dealing with your mental filters and tricking your brain, using the laziness against your brain, but in your direction, it's incredibly powerful. And because to build habits, it takes statistically more than like 66 days. Some people say 90. I always try to exaggerate. Why would you go for 66? Just go with 90. Go with
Yeah.
100. I love the number 100. Prove yourself. You're more badass than statistics.
Yeah.
Go for 100 and you're sure. But because you need at least 100 days of repeated action to really ingrain a habit, you want to make it as easy as possible. So the 20-second rule is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Uh, How do you deal with mastering your emotions, dealing with your emotions, making them more? Because this is something that you've dealt with. Like I think you said you used to have like anger issues. So how did you go about mastering that, getting that under control?
Yeah, so it all comes down to what I mentioned at the beginning. That's probably rule number one of mastering your mind is you're 100% accountable for anything you do in life and anything that happened to you. So there is a Viktor Frankl, a psychologist, that say that you cannot always control what happens to you, external factors, but you can always 100% control how you respond. And that's something I read like years ago, and it's like, gosh, I wish someone told me before, because the fact of being 100% accountable, it's sort of like a badge of pride for me now. And it's sort of like relieving myself of the stress. Like, I can deal with anything that happened to me, anything. It might take more time, it might take more effort and more energy, but I can deal with anything. So it's not like, oh, I'm the victim and I don't know what happened tomorrow. It's like, let's finger cross, it's gonna be a good day. I hate believing in that state, right? I want to be, confident in dealing with my life, especially now that I have a kid, even more, right? Because now you need to be accountable for the kid as well until he's old enough. So the way I think about emotions, how to master them. Have you seen the movie? What was the animation? Inside Out, I think it's called. Where I think there is two. In the first one, the girl is, I think, like 5, 6, 7, around that age, and she starts discovering her emotions. She's a very happy and cheerful girl. So the main emotion at that age is a girl, like a little figurine in her brain called happy, right? And she starts dictating all the other emotions what to do. She's like the leader of it. At the beginning, it's normal because when you grow up as a kid, you don't build all your emotion at the same time. They're all equally important, right? They all pop up randomly depending on what you have year experience until that age, especially 4 to 6 years, the 4 to 5 and 6 is where you start building your emotions. So happy is the leader, and then there is sad. I remember the sad is like happy is a beautiful little like fairy, but sad is like a short and chubby and always shy and bluish girl. And I think that the meaning of the first movie is like we need all the emotions, and all the emotions are important. We can't get rid of something and think only happy is gonna rule your life, because life is more complicated than that. It's great at the beginning when you're 5, you don't have responsibility, life is quite simple and easy. But then the more you grow, the harder it gets, right? And number 2 is when she is start being like a teenager. More emotions now pops up. There is envy, there is jealousy, there is disgust, and now it was a team of 4 or 5. Now became like a team of 10, and they don't know how to deal with each other. There's a lot of friction. Everyone wants to take charge. That's your teenager years. So rule number 1 in mastering your emotions, like all emotions are good. All emotions are needed. We're human beings. What you want is just control them, understand why they're popping up. What I usually say, there is no positive or negative emotion. There is like a useful or not useful emotion. Is that emotion at that time being useful for you, for who you want to be, with the person you want to be? Is it hurting anyone or not, right? So anger is by almost everyone is look at sort of like a negative emotion, but it's not. It's part of our response to something that is threatening us, right? So imagine someone that never gets angry at anything that happens to them. What do you think is going to happen to that person in this society, right? People are going to take advantage of that person. It's like a lamb in a wolf pack. You want to be angry sometimes because people will try to take advantage. And if you never respond to that, if you never tell them that, hey, this is pissing me off, this is not something that is okay with me, they never realize, and then, it builds up. Of course, you want to control it. So anger is negative only if it's out of control. And if it's dominating you, and if it's the only emotion that is, commanding all the others, like it did to me for a few years when I was a teenager, water polo. I could only see black and red, and anger was by far the biggest and most dominant emotion. It was out of control. I was not mastering it at all. I was completely giving it the reins, and off you go, do whatever, right? You don't want to do that with any emotion, right? You don't want to have a single emotion that is by far too predominant to others. Even happy, you're always incredibly happy, and you'll see if you see Inside Out. I don't want to spoil it, but it's not a happy ending. The girl tried to be happy, doesn't matter what happened, and you become naive, right? You neglect all the other emotion. You think everything's going to be fine. It doesn't matter what happened. Everything is going to be fine. No, everything is not going to be fine if you don't let your other emotion come out and give you a bit of wisdom tips. So it's very easy if you have one emotion that is very predominant and it's not serving you. I'm not saying negative, just not serving you. It's very easy. The best way for me to do it is picture that exactly like Inside Out. When I saw the movie, I was like, holy moly, this is the best thing ever. Picture it as a character. It is as well defined as you can. It could be an animal, it could be an object, it could be a person, something that resonates with you, and it's very easy to recall. So for me, the anger became Furious Freddy, a person that's called Furious Freddy. It's quite similar to me, but a very pissed off person, always just smokes and fires everywhere. I talk to Furious Freddy every time he comes up. I don't suppress him. I still get angry sometimes. I'm still the kind of a person. I'm probably more like a Furious Freddy than other people, and especially my wife. Her biggest persona is crying Cindy, because it's probably like the sadness part of her sometimes comes up more than other part. We don't suppress it. We just talk to her. Crying Cindy is like, okay, why are you crying? Do you need to just vent it? There's something wrong. Sometimes we react to the same thing that happened to both of us in those two different ways. I get angry, she gets sad, right? They're not negative, they're not bad, they're just our reaction to something that happened to us. Okay, well, like, okay, I don't like it. The thing you don't want to do is like, why you're crying, you shouldn't be crying. Because I don't cry. It's like, who cares if you don't cry? But you get pissed off. You break the broom the other day. I was just crying. So it's not that yours is better than mine. it's just a different reaction, and it's beautiful. Like we're human beings, we're a rainbow of emotions. My deal, my best tips is, figure it out which one is not serving you. Talk to that person, the character, control it, understand why it's there. Is it a one-off or it's been there for years and years? And try to make it part of the team and not just a standalone character. Again, we should look at some clips of the Inside Out. I think one of the main characters in the two is anxiety. And instead of happiness, it becomes anxiety. And the way they deal at the moment, at the beginning, when anxiety pops up, it just creates a mess, right? Because anxiety out of control is not good for anyone. It makes the girl do crazy stuff that was out of her character until that point. But then you see that after a while, when they try to control more or less and making anxiety part of the team, the girl grows, because now she's doing things that she wouldn't otherwise, because she was a bit too naive, a bit too shy, a bit too sad, only had a few emotions that were detecting. Anxiety is the only thing that makes her go outside of her comfort zone. And what we always see when growth happens outside of the comfort zone, your comfort zone is where you go back to heal and rest, right? But there's no growth there. It's like your beautiful home, your beautiful bubble, you're not growing there. And if you don't have that bit of anxiety and a bit of healthy stress, you're never gonna go outside. And what happens if you only stay in your bubble? You become lazy, and it's then never gonna become the person you want to be. So a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress are just signals of growth most of the time, but most of the people leave that signal unchecked, and they become again like a baggage too big. Where they actually dominate your life. Now, every time you need to respond to something, you just full on, similar to me with anger, full on anxiety, panic attack. I can't deal with that. You leave. There's no growth there because you are completely going overboard. So just keeping everything in check, keeping everything constructive and useful to you, and not damaging the person you want to become. Sometimes I get a bit of anxiety and stress. I see them as positive signals. Like that means like, oh, this thing is triggering me a bit of like adrenaline. It's like, what's happening? Maybe I like it. Maybe it's dangerous. I need to do a bit more deep research on that single episode or action or person I meet. It's like, oh, that's a good thing. And then my anxiety comes down. It's like, nope, that was not a good direction for me. Let's go back. Or like, yeah, that's a good person that really triggered something in me. I want to learn more, right? Or that's a cool topic. I want to learn more. Or that's a cool adventure you mentioned. Or not, it's too dangerous. Step back. Or absolutely, let's do it because it's gonna grow and it's gonna give me more of what I want. So as I mentioned, there is not such a thing as a positive or negative emotion. There's like something that serves you or doesn't serve you. As long as you think about anything that happened to your life in these terms, then you can filter it. You sit down and you decide in which direction to take. So the best way is like, okay, keep a journal, at least a week, ideally 2 or 3 weeks or a month, of every single time that you experience that emotion that you think is dragging you back, right? Okay, I felt anxiety after breakfast because I received a text message from John. Okay, it was this and that. Okay, then anxiety again at 11 because I was crossing the road and too much traffic. Just detail. And then at the end of each week, you just highlight and see if you understand the pattern. Okay, the anxiety shows up every time I was at work and I was dealing with John. Like, what's happening? Do I not like John? It's like because he's not my boss, is just competing to become my boss. There's something behind all the triggers. When you discover the trigger, you have all the power again because you're 100% accountable. Now you can do something with the trigger. Do you want to completely take it off and go somewhere else? Do you want to confront the person because maybe the person is your trigger and mitigate that anxiety? Or maybe you want to investigate more because that anxiety could be actually a good thing. oh, I hate John because he's trying to compete with my role, but it's actually because of the competition. Yeah, it makes me a bit unsettled, but I'm becoming better at what I do. So it's actually a good thing. So every time without John, I would be lazy because no one would compete with me at work. There is so many different ways of seeing this stuff. You can see the same thing from different angles. That's a cool thing. And sometimes a mentor can help you, or from different perspectives. So you can just zoom out or zoom in, right? And all these exercises will make you realize, which direction you're taking, if it's useful for you or not.
Yeah. How do you deal with more subconscious thoughts? Things that aren't you were often not aware of all of the things going on in our heads, especially if they're ingrained in us a long time. So how do you coach when it comes to subconscious thoughts and things that take deeper work to change behaviors and stuff?
Yeah, so that's a good thing that a lot of things are in our subconscious. I told you that our subconscious takes most of the work. Otherwise, we will burn out,
Yeah.
daily, probably like every second of our life. Um, it takes a lot more time to uncover things that we are not aware of. The cool thing is working with even a memory is understanding what a memory is, why every time you think about something, it slightly changes the way you describe it. The moment you start being aware of your own dialogue, your own thoughts, your own emotions triggered by the memory, then you become aware of something that it was in your subconscious. You bring it into your conscious. It takes just a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, a lot of looking outside or inside yourself. The deeper the trauma, the harder it is. When there are big traumas, I don't deal with that, honestly. It's something that comes PTSD or something that could be called by a psychiatrist. I don't want to deal with that because I could, but there is a lot to gain and a lot to lose, right? It's sort of like a very dangerous game. I know how to talk to people, but professionally, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do their work because you are working on a thin line. There is, because we are so diverse, that even with a bit of my experience, I could give you sort of like the wrong direction very easily. Sort of like, balancing on a trade for most of the people, and the most general trauma, anxiety, fear, depression. It's sort of like easy to discuss and easy to balance. With much bigger and stronger, deep-rooted trauma, the balance is not there at all. The wire you're balancing on, it's freaking thin. So it's very dangerous. I would highly suggest you to go and look at a much more professional and serious advice and mentor. Yeah. So what were you asking at the beginning?
Yeah, just
I
how you
lost
deal
track.
with subconscious stuff. Are you a
Yeah.
fan of like meditation, mindfulness? I would imagine that works into there.
Yes. Yes and no. It works for a lot of people. It's most of the time, I think it's a bit shallow.
Hmm.
The work, it's all about you. If you don't know what to do, you can meditate your whole life, and there is not much gain to
Yeah,
get. If it's guided meditation, is much better, but at the same time, it could still be shallow. It could still not bring you a lot of results.
you wait. You
What
so you
I've
think
been involved, yeah.
you think guided meditation is better than like breath meditation, stuff like that? Because I think the opposite. I
No,
love.
it depends. It
Yeah,
depends. If meditation, breath meditation by yourself is not serving you, I see you do it for like a year, 2 or 3, and you're
yeah,
still the same person, it's still the same baggage, then you can change and do guided meditation. It's
yeah,
another tool that you can have, right?
yeah,
It's people they're like, oh, I don't never do guided meditation. It's bullshit. It's like, well, did you find a lot of results into what they're doing? Yes, great. Keep doing it.
yeah,
I will never change something that is working perfectly. Never.
yeah,
But honestly, I never work with people that way, right? No one comes to me like, hey, everything I've been doing so far, it's been great. I find
yeah,
results. Like, okay, why are we even talking?
yeah,
It
yeah,
never happened to me. It never happened to me. I don't think anyone would pay me any money or even talk to me just for free. if that was the case. Everyone has always been either I've never done anything, help me, or I've done a lot of stuff and they never work, right? So meditation and mindfulness, most of the time it's part of it. There is a lot of people that have tried, like gratitude and journaling, yoga and breath work. And now they're quite common, especially in the Western world. In the last 20 years, we took it a lot from the Eastern, right, culture. Some people find it super beneficial. I do, like breath work, but others, they're the same person and the same problem they had 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So if that's the case and you really committed to it, or you really tried and you haven't found any results, it's probably a good time to change what you're doing, right? And that's why they come to me. That's why they talk to me. What I'm really interested in now, it's more like hypnotic language or quantum linguistics. They're like very cool terms, but it's basically how we filter information, and how we share those information with the world will tell me as a coach a lot about how my subconscious is responding to it. So the devil is in the detail, right? It takes a while to actually me understand a lot about your subconscious, and what kind of baggage you have in there, because you don't know if it's in your subconscious. So it takes a lot of talking and analyzing our discussion after to really understand the way you filter the world. 99% of the people I talk to, they don't know, right? Because if you knew, you know already what's happening. The only thing you need is like, how do I fix it? But if you have done a lot of work in knowing what's happening, most of the time you know even how to fix it. So 99% of the time, there is a lot of confusion there. Like, I have this stress and anxiety. That's it. That's all they say. I'm always stressed and panic attack. Okay, let's start talking. Okay, what was your day? What did you do yesterday? What happened in the last 6 months? Did something happen in the last year that was different, and so on? We start digging in the past. We start projecting yourself in the future and see if you react like, oh, just a panic attack, just thinking about that. That's another signal. We start bringing back the emotion that trigger good signals or bad signals, and start analyzing if there is a pattern. And after two to six chat, depending on how clear you are, it's quite easy then to understand what's going on in your subconscious. And then the moment I understand, you do as well, right? Because of our discussion, it's not that I take information, I just don't talk, and then I filter it, and I realize something and I'm not telling you. So let's have like a discussion, right? As a coach, I guide you to different direction. I open possibilities to you, but the realization, the haha moments are all yours. Sometimes you do my mentees have haha moment that I don't even realize. And after 2 or 3 chats that were like, oh, we don't know if we're going in the right direction, the person's like, whoa, what you just said, it's like trigger something. Now I understand what you meant last week. Everything just falls back into place. But because you are such a different person than me, most of the time I don't know when I'm putting the right piece in the right place, like Tetris, right? Sometimes we lose a few games before we understand how to put the pieces in the right place. And then honestly, it's part of life. The only thing we need is commitment and consistency. That's all you need: commitment and consistency. Similar to life, if you're trading any money, some people win money the first trade they do. Great, they're lucky, whatever it is. Maybe they're smarter, maybe it is. Some people lose a few trades before they win one. It doesn't matter that you cannot win. You can always win a trade. And in life, it's so much more than a trade. As long as you keep playing the game and you do it the right way, you always learn from your losses.
Yeah.
And you readjust.
When you're working with people, do they already know the identity that they want, or do you have to work with that?
Yeah, most of the time, myself included. If you asked me 15 years ago, who are you? I would have absolutely told you water polo player and engineer.
Mm.
That's not who I am. That again, what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I never did any work on myself. Even after the capabilities, your beliefs, your values, you need some thinking, sitting down and proper thinking, maybe some test, some discussion with people to actually come down with what are my beliefs, my limiting beliefs, because you want to know both, right? What's serving you, what not serving you. Doesn't mean that it's going to disappear, but like I'm aware there is some obstacle if I go that way. What are your actual values? Then what's your identity? Am I part of a big mission or not? If you are not aware of it, yeah, most of the people, I would say like a good 80% of the people are not aware of their identity. And the same goes for values and beliefs. They know something and they throw you a few words out there, but it's not very deeply rooted in them because respect. Okay. So you throw them some scenarios and they go in the other direction. And it's like, oh, so wait a second, did you just tell me? And you just make them understand. So you didn't just tell me that respect was one of your biggest values. Like, why did you act that way in this scenario? It's like, oh, yeah, no, it pissed me off. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care about whoever. It's like, that's not respect, right? So it's more like power for you. It's probably one of your values. You want to feel, confidence in that's part of your values. So respect is probably like a level 2, right? And when people realize there is nothing wrong, but it's just an enlightening moment when you realize, because then you can do the same discussion we just did with someone close to you, and most of the time it's your spouse, your kids, your parents, and you can understand why you had conflict for 20 years. Because I, especially me, Fabio, very much value that direct communication. And my parents, not really. They just try to avoid it. But the moment we realize and we discuss, like, hey, if it's something that's pissing me off, I'm gonna tell you. But don't get pissed. It's just me valuing my direct communication. It's not that I have something wrong. It's just I need to get it out. I need to tell you, and I feel much better. I feel our relationship is much better. They don't take it personal anymore. They're like, okay. And I don't take it personal that they don't answer back. Right? I do what I think is best for me, accountability, right? They do what's best for them. But the moment, as long as there is, we understand each other, we understand our values, there is no conflict. If we don't, I expect them to react the way I would. You create conflict.
Yeah. How does I already know this? Like,
So you tell me the answer.
well, language, the way that we talk to ourselves. How does that influence our mental health? Because I mean, this is something I've always struggled with. Like, I can be pretty negative with my self talk. I'm failing. I'm doing this. Whatever it might be. So how do you address that? Is it just there's different ways, right? You can just write down every time you're feeling a certain way. You can have an accountability person, like, hey, I'm feeling this way. Like, how do you typically handle that?
So there are like two ways. The first one, I try to, like I'm doing now, your physiology as well affect the way you behave. Similar to the way you're sitting on a chair, right? And the other way around. So if I'm negative and my internal dialogue is like, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm stressed, I'm not prepared for this podcast, my sitting will be very slouched, my voice will be very low. And so it's reflecting the way I'm thinking, right? But you can use it the other way around. So even if I feel that I'm not worthy, I'm not ready, and so on, but if you use your physiology or the way you talk in a way to influence your thinking and your emotions over a long period of time, you will become the person. So the way I'm quite fake sometimes in adjust people posture. Yeah, it's something very simple. People are like, why you keep telling me to stand up straight and look upright when you're walking on a sidewalk, and use a louder voice and use some of your body language? because that is the way you're teaching your internal dialogue to behave. Because confident people, successful people, happy people, they all behave similarly to that. They don't whisper, they don't look down when they're talking to you, they don't slouch, they don't behave like that, because that's a reflection of an happy, successful person. So if you don't know how to be happy, successful, try to behave physically, because that's something easily you can do, right? You don't know how to be that, try to emulate what they actually do, because that will help you heaps in becoming the person. So stand upright, use your voice, use your body. When you're walking on a sidewalk, I hate people that are looking at your feet. What do you think? Have you ever seen a very successful, if you win the lottery tomorrow and you walk on the sidewalk in New York, would you look at your feet or slouch with the hands in your pocket? Probably not. What would that person do? It will jump, it will be up straight, it will high five everyone, because in that moment the person feels successful, happy, and just the best moment of its life. Now, we can't win the lottery every day, but what if we can behave like the person winning the lottery every day? What's stopping you? So every time you see someone incredibly happy, jumping and high-fiving, you don't know shit about the person. You don't know if the person is actually happy, but you only see the behavior, right? And that influences you immediately. So why don't you start behaving slightly like the person? Adjust your posture, the way you walk, the way you talk, the fact that you high-five, you hug people instead of like, hey, from like 3 meters away. You don't need to become a different person, right? Because I very much value authenticity. So of course, if high five hugging is not your thing, but they're just example, right? Find a person, if you're an introvert, let's say, because lots of people are like, but I'm an introvert. I don't like hugging people. Okay, cool. So find an introvert that is extremely successful, extremely happy, because you know they are, and look how they behave. And behave as similar to them as possible without being them, still being you. That's not going to fix all your problems, but that's a great way of starting, right? And the same thing is in talking, right? Use words that are extremely just comforting and empowering, Use like spectacular, amazing. Just use these kind of words as often as you can. And if you really struggle, even more often than you want to. Without lying to yourself, right? Because if it's a shitty day, the worst thing you want to do is like, hey, spectacular day. No, it's a shitty day, right? But when you're okay, why would you be like, yeah, why are you feeding that animal inside you? Why are you feeding that negativity? It's not serving you, like we mentioned before, right? Do you want to become a negative person? By all means, go that way. But most of the people want to become more positive, more curious, more successful in life, in business, in whatever they are, more confident in speaking. Those are like less stress, less anxiety, right? Those are things that when unchecked, they don't serve you. So behave like a person, physically behave, why there are people around the world that make millions in doing your grocery and readjusting your styling and your image. They make millions because the dress, the cloth you wear helps a lot, right? You see a person dressed up as a clochard, as a homeless person, most of the time is a lot less confident and happy and successful than someone that is dressed up properly. And doesn't mean that you need a suit. I don't like suit. I like a t-shirt. I feel myself. I feel empowered. I feel confident when I wear like sporty stuff because my identity is I value all the values of the sport, respect and commitment and discipline. So I want to wear things that reflect that, right? So if I was wearing like a suit with the leather shoes, and a fancy hat, it would not empower me. I would feel awkward. I would be more like less confident, more shy, and so on, right? But if you are the person that values, be elegant and going to amazing places, by all means, you need to behave like that person. The first thing you want to do before you become the person is behaving like the person. And then slowly you're going to influence their behavior. So it's extremely powerful technique. And again, the devil is in the details. But it can work, honestly. At least a small improvement like this in on the day you do it. So using your voice, your tonality, and the words that you choose influence your internal dialogue as well. So if you always tell people, yeah, it's okay, another day, what do you think you're going to tell yourself? Because that's already the best thing you're thinking if you're expressing that. So your internal dialogue will be like, oh, another shitty day. I hate this for sure. Right. So start telling people like, yeah, it's not the best, but something successful, like, or something successful about others, compliment others, that's gonna really become like a driver, a motivator for you to become a better person, reduce the things that you don't want, and fuel the things that you want.
Yeah. Fabio, I love to ask people about books, and you seem like a reader. So I would love to hear books that have been influential in your life. Like, what are some books that you recommend to people or that have really mattered in your own life?
That's something that comes into my mind right now. There is one called The Inner Game of Tennis. Honestly, I'm really bad. I always forget the name of the writer because it's probably part of my identity, right? I honestly don't care about the messenger. I care about the
Mhm.
message.
Yeah.
Um, so when I quote something, 99% of the time, I remember the quote, I remember the meaning of the quote. I almost never remember who said that. So
Yeah.
sometimes I quote people and, they might get pissed off. Like, I'm sorry, buddy, just not doing it intentionally. So the inner game of tennis, because it's sport related, it very much resonated with me. The message,
Just curious,
uh,
did you play tennis at all?
no, I play now.
Okay. Okay.
I always liked the sport because I was playing water polo and was obsessed with the water polo. There was no space for anything else,
Yeah.
not even going to the toilet sometimes. But I had a few friends in at school that were playing tennis. I don't know why, but maybe I liked them, maybe whatever. The tennis I like watching some games. I started playing last year because I always liked it, and I always said to myself, if I stop playing water polo, if I have more time, I will play tennis. So much, just it's an amazing sport. There's so much going on. It's like 3D chess.
Mm.
It's a lot of mental game, physical as well. The estimate that people playing tennis until the late years in the 80s live like 20% longer than others.
Yeah.
uh, it's a lot going on. It's a reflex. It's a social activity. Is something that very rarely, unless you play, a very high level, creates bad injuries. It's the opposite. It just really strengthen your joints, which is an amazing thing when you grow up. Increase your bone density because of all the hits you take. The bone density improves. So it's just a lot going on. And I like the game as well because it's a mindset game. You're sort of like always playing. It doesn't matter if you're a great player, you can always win with anyone if you
Yeah.
trick the other person in a certain way. And last aspect that I love is like, doesn't matter how strong and successful you are, you're losing heaps of points in your life.
Mm.
Roger Federer, that is considered one of the best player ever. I think in one of his speeches said that in his whole career, one of the most successful play in history, he won only 56% of the point.
Hmm.
56, just over half. And
Yeah.
he won like 20 Grand Slams, and just it's ridiculous. In any other industry, if you win 56% of the time, you're definitely not in the top of the world, right?
Yeah.
But the best players in the world, what they do is they are used to constantly lose something. Even when the game you're winning, you lose a lot of points. And
Yeah.
tennis doesn't end at a specific time, like most of the sports. It can go on forever. So even if you're winning 90% of the points up to a point, there are some matches that that person then lost the game. It's all about momentum. It's all about how you deal with losses, how you deal with the actual action, how you respond and make yourself accountable. So
Yeah.
they did a statistic, and the 5 top players in the world, when they were studying them, they were the most successful because of the internal dialogue. Because every time they were losing a point, they were making a bad decision, going right instead of left, slicing instead of not. The internal dialogue was like, oh, the players did an amazing move. Oh, I learned from that. Oh, maybe I should have done that, but great move. Oh, I can run faster. They were fueling the athlete inside of them instead of like, oh, what a shitty play I've done. Oh,
Yeah.
come on. You see the player that smash rackets. Sometimes even the top players, they lose it because it's such a mental game. But the best and the best in the world, they've always had like a much stronger internal dialogue. They've never been the strongest physically, the best technique compared to everyone else. It's all about how they master their mind. So the inner game of tennis just really resonated with everything. It can be applied to any sport, any industry, any aspect of your life. It's very cool book. The other one I read just recently, that's why it comes into my mind. It's Extreme Ownership.
Hmm.
Um,
Is that
and
Jocko?
again,
Is
yeah,
it?
what was the name? Again, I told you, I just forget, honestly. Yeah, you can. There's Extreme Ownership. It's a quite famous book.
Yeah.
Similar to what I repeated a few times, 100% accountability. It's super and powerful.
Yeah.
You become a superhuman when you let go of the victim mentality, and you know that doesn't matter what happened to you, you can deal with that. Even if it takes years, you will deal with that. Of course, bigger problem create takes more time, but that's not the point. Who cares? It will take the time that it needs, but I can deal with that, right? I don't need, that external validation from anyone else. I don't need the support. It's just me, and no one else can help me sometimes. And the only really thing they need is just your commitment and your dedication. So yeah, those are 2 books I read recently. No, Inner Games of Tennis a while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that comes into my mind that they really resonate with all the message, that we've been talking today.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Fabio, it's been awesome talking to you today. Before we wrap up, I want to hand it over to you to tell listeners where they can find you, where they can find your website, social media, anything else you want to share, where they want to work with you. Yeah, anything like that.
Awesome, thank you. I think it's been amazing. We've been following each other for like a year on X. We've done a lot of spaces together, and super cool to be here. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. So thank you first and foremost. So please follow Artie. You see the right or left on my side. For me, nowadays you can find me mostly on X. I have to be honest, I'm not as much as in love as I was last year of the platform. I don't like the direction it's taking. Maybe even before I joined, I don't know, but in the last year or two, it's more like you need to be there and you need to comment and share the people message uh, to grow in the platform instead of like sharing your own message. So I don't want to spend hours and hours each day to go on other people's account and like and comment and just, do you think you're providing value to the world doing that? But I see thousands of accounts that only because they say, yes, I do. Yes, you like. Yes, yes, you're cool. Or no here, no there. To other people's account, they grow. I don't think it's a smart algorithm over a long period of time. Maybe it's good for them for money wise as a business. Probably, I don't know, but I don't like the aspect. So I'm probably not gonna grow there much. I don't care. I still like it as a platform, and I like to connect with people. So I'm still gonna be there. You can reach out to me and DM me. DMs are open. It's only Feds. It's the handle. I have this app that the website is live. The app will be live very, very soon. It's called Allos Mind, where I can coach you through an app instead of one-on-one or group coaching, which is different. It's not better or worse. It's just different. It's just another way of doing it. If you don't want to invest a lot of money and a lot of time, the app is much better each week. You just 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, and you log in and log out whenever you want, right? Like a normal app. It will give you workout for your mind whenever you want to. But if you want to then work with me or with my groups, you need to talk to me. So it's only feds. And I'm more than happy to help anyone. I'm not here to become the next big thing. I'm just here to help as many people as possible.
Awesome. Fabio, I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, man.
Thank you so much, Artie.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers, guys.